There is a mistake here, your examiner points out to you in your thesis defense. How to respond? Do I deny it, saying, no, that's not a mistake? Or do I panic, thinking that this one mistake is going to ruin everything? Or can I blame it on somebody else, saying I did it this way because my supervisor told me to do it like that? Or I did it this way because you told me to do it like that? Well, those are probably not such great ideas. The correct approach is actually quite simple. Acknowledge it, assess it so that I can explain it and/or correct it. In this video, I will share with you 5 things you can say when your examiner finds a mistake in your thesis. Let's get into it. First, you are right to point that out. This is the first thing you can and should say. It sounds simple, but it's powerful. Many students make the mistake of becoming defensive immediately. They think, well, this is my thesis defense, so I have to defend myself. So they say things like, no, I don't think this is a mistake, or my supervisor said it was okay. If the examiner has found and pointed out a mistake, denying it too quickly and defending it too strongly can make you appear less credible and less self-critical about your own work. So when the examiner points out an error, start with acknowledgement. Say something like, you are right to point that out. I see the issue. I agree with you that this part is indeed not as accurate as it should be. Saying something like this does not mean that I am somehow admitting that my entire thesis is bad. Instead, this actually shows a mature academic posture. I see the issue, I'm not pretending that it's not there, and we can talk about it. This is much better than denial or panic. Second, the correction on this issue would affect this or that part, but not the key conclusion. This is another thing that's important to say, because we want to show that we recognize the error would need correction, but we also want to clarify that the implication of that correction is relatively limited, that the key findings and conclusions would still stand. Not all mistakes have the same weight. Some mistakes are minor, some are moderate, and some are more serious. Our response should show that we are able to assess the impact of the error. At the same time, we want to explain, if possible, that the impact of the error is limited. For example, we can say something like, you're right, this number should be corrected in the table. The corrected value, however, would not change the overall pattern of the results. The key conclusion still holds true. Or something like, indeed, the labeling of the sampling technique was inaccurate. I should have been more careful. The detailed description of the sampling process, however, was factual and fully consistent with what I did. I now recognize the inaccurate sampling technique naming to be a relevant limitation. Such a response is balanced. We're not saying, because of that one mistake, my entire thesis is meaningless. We're also not saying that error or mistake absolutely doesn't matter. We recognize the error, we show that we understand its impact, and hopefully we can still make a valid argument that despite this mistake, the key findings and conclusions still hold true. Number 3, what I should have written more clearly is, this is particularly useful when the examiner has found not necessarily a factual error, but rather something that's unclear, something that didn't quite connect, or something a bit illogical. So if the examiner says something like, this section is confusing, or I don't quite understand how you moved from this point to the next, or the connection between your theory and your hypothesis is unclear to me. They're not saying that something is completely and absolutely wrong, but they are pointing out something that doesn't seem quite right. In response, here, I would not directly and automatically admit, well, I guess my theoretical framework was weak, or my reasoning was not logical enough. A better response approach would be to seek to clarify things. I see your point. What I should have written more clearly is that this method was chosen because it allowed me to explore and examine participants' experiences in depth so that previously unknown aspects could surface. Or, I agree, the wording was not completely clear and that this link could have been explained better. The logic that I intended to present in this section was that, so on and so forth. So the idea here is quite simple, really. If the examiner says something is confusing and unclear, then let's try to clarify things for them. That's much better than ignoring their point or over-apologizing for it. Number 4, I fully understand the concern. My reasoning was... This one is important because sometimes the examiner thinks and says something is a mistake, but it may actually be a defensible choice. The examiner may question and challenge your research methodological approach, your sampling method, or your decision to include or exclude certain variables in your model. They think you may have made a mistake somewhere and they're questioning you about it. In such a moment, it is probably not wise to surrender too quickly or defend too strongly. A balanced approach would be better. So instead of saying, yes, you are completely right, I should have done it differently, or no, you are incorrect here, consider saying something like this. I fully understand your concern. My reasoning was a qualitative research design was more suitable here because the aim was to explore how participants experience the process and to identify previously unknown and unexpected perceptions and feelings, instead of trying to numerically measure existing variables or relationships. I totally understand why you raised this point. My reasoning, though, was that a qualitative approach best matched the exploratory nature of the research objective. Something like that. I show that I do hear the examiner's critical point, and at the same time, I share my reasoning and defend my choice. Number 5. If I were revising my thesis, I would correct this point by... This is very useful to say if you want to move the conversation from talking about the mistake itself to potential improvement and refinement of the thesis. This is particularly relevant for situations where the examiner has identified a relatively clear-cut error, something for which there is no point in denying and not much room for defending or justifying. In that situation, it is probably better to meaningfully move the conversation forward, acknowledge the issue, and talk about what could be done about it. Maybe I would say something like this. If I were revising my thesis, I would correct the table, adjust explanation in the results section, and make sure the discussion reflects the corrected value. Or if I were revising the thesis, I would soften this claim. Instead of saying that the results proved the relationship, I would say that the findings suggest a possible association that should be tested further. By saying something like this, it shows that I understand the error, that I know how it should be corrected, and what its potential impact is on the thesis. So, to sum up, these are 5 strong response approaches for when an examiner points out a mistake or a potential mistake in your thesis defense. Most of the time, these are much better than saying something like, I did it this way because my supervisor told me to do it like this, or I did it like this simply because I didn't have enough time, or yes, that was indeed wrong. Does that mean I failed? Compared to those responses, these 5 response approaches are probably much stronger and safer. And by the way, check out 2 highly related videos here, 10 mistakes to avoid and 10 things you should never say in a thesis defense. I'll put the links in the video description down below. In conclusion, a mistake in the thesis does not automatically destroy the thesis and the defense. To err is human, so I would not pretend that my work is perfect, nor commit to the thinking that one mistake ruins everything. When a mistake is pointed out to me, I would want to show that I understand my research process, its strengths and weaknesses, and how errors should be corrected. Do my 5 response approaches make sense to you? As always, I invite you to leave your thoughts and comments down below. Please also check out my other videos on thesis defense and academic evaluation. I am sure you will find them interesting and useful. Thanks for watching this Ranywayz random video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.